Hello, everyone. My name is Benjamin Bravo. I am the Preserve Resource Manager for Sonoma State University. As a Preserve Resource Manager, I do work with yellow star thistle, other invasive plant removal, and also some work with some of our camera traps. Thank you all for attending this event. Before I get started talking about GIS, I would like to quickly talk about the Center for Environmental Inquiry. So I work for the Sonoma State University Center for Environmental Inquiry. And the center's main mission is to provide education and research and opportunities to visit the preserves. And our main goal is to create a society that is environmentally ready. So we are working with many other North Bay organizations. And we also offer quite a few classes for Sonoma State University students. These include land management and naturalist programs. We offer internships to students, and you are all very important in addressing some of the big environmental challenges that are coming up or that are currently happening and are continuing to happening. And we think it's important to engage everybody and involve everybody in these processes. Before I really get started with the main event, I just want to tell you some quick housekeeping tips. Everyone, you should be muted, and if you have a question, you can type it. No other questions? Oh, whoops. A lot of people are still waiting. Okay. Oh, sorry. So there will be a question and answer section during the middle of the presentation, but most of this will actually, I'll just be talking for a few different sections. If you have been able to download the handout that I provided, you can see the overall outline, and we will stop after the Google My Maps section, or stop during there to have a quick break, some questions, and then there will be a longer question and answer section at the very end. Let's see. That's mostly it. I'm still admitting a few people. It seems like there's still a few people arriving. We don't have any brief questions right off the bat, right after the start. Okay, I'll take the awkward silence as a no. Yeah, sorry. This is my first time doing this without people responding back, so that's interesting, but we'll see how this works. Oh, yeah, another quick note, I will be staying after the event, and also this event is recorded. So I'll be staying after the event to answer any other questions you might have. I have a fair amount of time, so I don't mind staying quite a bit after. So we will have more questions then. All right, so let's get started. So again, my name is Benjamin Bravo. I've been using GIS for about the past 5 years. I use it as a student. I used it for my undergraduate and master's research. It's really one of the most useful skills that I've learned. And I've also used it as a teaching assistant and a private GIS tutor. I definitely think it will help you all. If anyone's new to GIS, hopefully this presentation will kind of give you an idea of what kind of maps you can create. For those of you who already have quite a bit of GIS experience, hopefully this will kind of provide you maybe with some shortcuts or some alternatives. This is especially important since ArcGIS is not a free software, and there could be some limits to using it, but Qgis, one of the applications that I will talk about today, is open source and free. So today we'll be talking mostly about Google My Maps and QGIS. I will also touch briefly on Google Earth and Google Earth Pro, but those applications I'm not as big a fan of, so I'll just touch on them for comparison. So let's see. What time is it? All right, still got a good amount of time. So I will start to share my screen. Let's see. Share screen. First screen that has all the good stuff on it. All right, hopefully you all can see my screen. If not, this would be very awkward. Let's see, actually. No notifications. Okay, I'm gonna assume that means, wait, sorry. Okay. All right, so this is the overall event handout. I'm just gonna scroll down to this comparison chart. I'm using this instead of PowerPoint because it is a little bit more efficient for our demonstration. So when deciding on a GIS application, you really want to think about what kind of access do you have to it. Is it free, ArcGIS online, or sorry, ArcGIS for students and for individuals right now is about $100 a year, I believe. And then there's, wait, sorry, $100 a year, whereas QGIS is free. Google My Maps, Google Earth Pro, Google Earth, those are all free, but you do need some kind of account, usually like a Gmail account to get into those. You also want to consider what kind of file types you're importing. So CSV files, KML, GPX, those are some of the common ones. What kind of data types you're using. So are you using lines, points, polygons, raster? What kind of imports and exports do you have? And so do you want to make a nice map? Do you want to make something that you can share as a file? What kind of analysis do you need to do? And who's your audience? Sorry, one second. So who's your audience? In addition, do you want the map to be somewhat interactive? Do you want people to get it on their phones? Do you want people to be able to, sorry, one second, be able to play with it at all? Oh, sorry, I have to admit one person. Is that it? Okay. And do you want to be able to have good control over the visual properties? So some of these visual properties are kind of like the color and the shape and different features of the map. So these are the main different programs that I'll be talking about today. I'm not going to go in depth through this chart because it's kind of it's just a chart. But I will show you some examples of each of them. So please take a look at this chart later in the handouts. And if you didn't get the handouts, please email me and I can email you those later time. So right now we should be going to Google Maps. Or sorry, Google My Maps. So this is an example of Google My Maps. I'm using a map of yellow star thistle that I made this year. And so hopefully all of you can see this. You can see it has kind of some of the built-in Google features. It has satellite background. These are my different layers. Sorry, 1 second. And you can also draw things. You can use addresses. And if you were to go back to over here to Sonoma State University, you can see everything is there that you would normally get in a Google map. So Google My Map is really just making a Google map personal, being able to add different types of files and really use it for kind of what you want. It's free, it's open source, you just need a Gmail account, but there are some account limits that I've found, so not all Gmail accounts will necessarily work. And yeah, and I really love this program, so I will talk about it for about 20 minutes in a little while. Next, we have, let's see, hopefully Google Earth Pro is actually, sorry, Google Earth. Hopefully this is not going to crash my computer because that would be unfortunate, or crash my internet. Okay, while that's loading, I'm going to show you QGIS. So this is QGIS. For any of you who have used GIS, or sorry, ArcGIS, this should look somewhat familiar, but quite a bit stripped down. It doesn't have all the same menus and everything. So this is what the program looks like. A lot of the features are in these easier to access bars, menus. QGIS is more on the GIS side. It's more on the analysis side. And with QGIS, you can import a bunch of different files. You can play around with the colors. You can do a lot more analysis. So I'll touch on that a little bit later when I talk about QGIS. You can also export it as quite a wide variety of files, change projections, and I guess that's it for now. Definitely going to touch on this later. All right. Now we're going to Google Earth. So this is Google Earth online. So there's actually two different Google Earth programs. There's Google Earth Online, and there's Google Earth Pro. Google Earth Pro is a desktop application, and they're slightly different. But let me just go to my projects, that they call them. And let's see, I think it's this one. Hopefully this works. Oh, come on. But anyway, so Google Earth Online. Whoa, that's what happened. Come on, Google Earth Online. Again, I'm not a huge fan of this program, but I need to show it for the sake of comparison. But Google Earth Online does have the ability to kind of zoom in and look at trees and look at things in this nice 3D view. It also has the ability to import a few different types of files. there's the real problem, the real reason why I don't love this program is because you don't have as much, okay, there we go, sorry. You don't have as much control over your icons. You don't have as much control over everything else. So, so that's a problem for me. And you still can kind of play with the color a little bit, but you can't really import as many files, and there's really no analysis. The main cool thing that people like using it for is you can zoom in and out and do various things with Google Earth online. And the last one is going to be Google Earth Pro. Oh, okay, we're running a little short on time. Google Earth Pro is a desktop application, and again, you can import KML. You could do some drawing with it the same way you can do with the other programs. The big difference, okay, if this loads, the big difference with Google Earth Pro is that it's on your desktop. You can import a few more different file types than Google Earth Online. You can, let's see. And you can do visual tours where it's like a video tour and you can see different parts of your map. So this is, again, the same, whoa, slow down there. This is the same map that I've been showing you all, yellow star thistle patches. And you can see there's some control over the color, but I didn't really pick these colors. Again, you also have some different layers that you can add, but it is kind of a, to me, an intermediate between a full GIS and something that's as easy to use as Google My Maps. So I'm not going to be talking about these two quite as much. Okay, let me exit this and exit this because I don't like this. Sorry. Oh, I'm having trouble exiting. Exit and exit my emails. All right. So let me, sorry, real quick, just check to make sure we don't have anyone else waiting. Okay, it looks good. Okay, everyone says it looks good. All right, awesome. No negative comments. So I think that means I'm doing a good job, hopefully. All right, so now we're gonna look at Google My Maps. So we have about 20 minutes to do this, but I'll probably stop a little bit short. So Google My Maps. So some of the main things you can do with this are import different features. So if you have a, let's see how this looks, GPS device. Oh wait, I'm sorry. This needs screen share, don't you? Silly Ben. There we go. If you have a GPS unit, you can import things. So these layers I already have on there. Let me get rid of this because it's a little distracting. These are previously added layers, but if you click the Add Layer button, you can import different files. And so select from your device. I'm sorry, I did that too fast. Let me go back. These are the different types of files that you can use. They tell you what you can use: KML, CSV, Excel, GPX. So I'm going to actually import a GPX file. So come on, computer. Okay. So GPX file is what you would typically get from a handheld GPS unit like this. And GPX files can be centroids, or sorry, not centroids, points. I have centroids for this purpose, the center points for my yellow star thistle patches. So I'm importing those. And those you just import real quick. There's not too much that can go wrong unless your device has problems. And you can, while that's loading, I'll just show you what it looks like. It looks like a bunch of points. And they're called waypoints because that's kind of how the GPS likes to name them. Oh, someone's entered the meeting. Oh, good. That's not good. Sorry, my maps. Uh-oh, come back to me. Zoom, zoom, zoom. All right, sorry, let me go back to this. Lost my train of thought. Oh, so that's how you import that. From GPS devices, you can also import tracks. So let's see if I actually have, nope, that's not it. Oh, there's the track. A track is the pathway that your GPS unit records. Some GPS units might record. You can select individual sections, or you can do the entire route that you traveled in one day. So those are tracks. Another thing you can import, and this is the fun part, is importing Excel sheets. And so I've even learned a little bit more about this the past few days as I've played around even more with this program. But the simplest thing to do is to add an Excel sheet that has all your GPS coordinates in it. So I am going to show you that for demonstration purposes, but I already have it on here. So let's go to, come on, where are you? No, this is not, oh, uh-oh. I'm going to import something totally different. I'm going to import a bunch of fast food restaurant GPS locations because it was online and it was easily available. So it'll give you this. It'll prompt you and say latitude and longitude. So if your Excel sheet doesn't have the name latitude and longitude, you can select different columns that you want for latitude and longitude. And then you click continue. So you can also set this to something else. If you have the address, you could just have the address as the main geographic placeholder and press continue. And the name, I'm going to say the name of the fast food restaurant. So place your title markers, finish. And now I've just added a bunch of GPS coordinates. Let's see if this actually adds correctly. Internet's slowing down just a smidge, and I can notice the program having a little bit of difficulties. But one thing you can also do is add addresses. So if you just have an Excel sheet with a bunch of addresses, you can add addresses to it, and it's pretty cool. So you just need these addresses in one row, and oh, come on. Oh, sorry. The reason why it shot me over here is there's actually one address that was incorrect in the original sheet. You can see all these points popped up. I'm gonna delete this layer real quick and just go to the one that I had before that. I already changed the icons for, so that's fun. If you open up this data table, you can also see the rows that were originally in there. So this has addresses. These are things that this data table already had, not things that I added. What else? Oh, one super cool feature that I just found out about a few days ago is that you can even have a county. So I don't have it in this map, but there's certain geographic features that Google Maps just already knows where they are, and it'll give you a point for them. So if you were to actually have like a census data set that had a list of counties and let's say populations in another column, it would populate that with all the points that are kind of like the centers of every county. And that's another way to get some cool information without really having to use polygons. It just kind of does it for you. It puts points there. So let me just check my list to make sure I'm actually hitting everything that I said I would. Import, import. Another file is KML. I'm not going to import it because it looks kind of the same as everything else we've been doing, but this is a KML file here, this outline of the Osborne Preserve. So that's a KML file, as well are, where are my patches? Yeah, my yellow star thistle patches. I did some preparation to get these into there in this format, but generally, you can find some KML files online, depending on what you're looking for. With Google My Maps, you do have to watch out for file size. There's a 5 megabyte file size limit. Now, a part where you can really take control of your map is by creating your own features. So the way to do that is to go to Add Layer. So Add Layers up here, Add Layer, and you can add your own lines and polygons and points. So I'm going to go over to Sonoma State because there's more stuff over here. Say I want to add a polygon for Sonoma State. All right, maybe I don't have one. Maybe I want to use it in a different map. Maybe I just want to draw attention to it. I would do that with this. So this draw a line, add line of shape. If you don't connect it, if you don't connect it, oh, there you go. If you don't connect it, it's just a line. And it adds it to this untitled layer. I'm going to call this fake layer, fake one. But you can also add other shapes like this. So Sonoma State is roughly, where did it go? Oh, it's roughly this general shape. I don't think that parking lot is actually part of it, like that. So look at that. Now you made your own polygon. That's pretty cool. Call it SSU outline. You can put details is Awesome University. That's my detail. And you also get the acreage and the perimeter around it every time you do that. say I want to add something else. Let's add a point. Okay, let me add a marker. So you can do this in a separate layer if you want to kind of keep things separate. There's a reason why you could want to keep things separate. For the demonstration, I'm just going to add these all to one layer. So I'm just going to say, add a point here. I'll call this question mark field because I have no idea what that's for. And then I will also add another point, and I'll call this, where's my office? Awkward. I don't know where my own office is. Oh, it's over here. Okay, office, Ben's office. I'll just put awesome as a detail. So this is my office. These are GPS coordinates. Get the GPS coordinates for all your points. Oh, sorry, the line. Where's my line? Let's zoom back out. Come on, line. Oh, here it is. There's someone. I thought I saw something. Oh, someone said something in the chat. Okay, well, I'm going to stop sharing screen real quick. Oh, okay, sorry. I'll answer that later. I'm going to go back to share screen. All right, so that's that. And I had more to say on Google My Maps. Oh, so that's adding your own things. Now, when you add your own stuff to a layer, it actually makes a data table. And right now, it just has description, the name of it. But you can also add, insert a column after. I'll call this, you can pick the data type. So text, you want it to be like a label. You want it to be a number. You want it to be date, and I guess true or false. But I usually do text because this is more like a category. I'll call it, I don't know. Let me think of a good category. I don't know, cat one. That's the name of my category. This is, yeah, but I'll actually do this with another table that's more fun. So you can add different things, and then when I talk about the visual features in about 20 seconds, you'll see why you would want to add your own tables. So I'm done with this, adding data. I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to go to the fast food layer because that has a lot more stuff for me to play with. So again, you'll get your own table if you start making your own layer, but if you import a CSV, you import an Excel table, you will also have that as well. So let's open data table. I also want to note that if someone has something to say like, oh my gosh, Ben, your microphone's off, or hey, Ben, there's a mountain lion behind you, or coyote, or anything like that, you can unmute yourself and say something. But in general, the chat, I'm not going to check till the middle. So sorry, just wanted to make that clear. So I have, oh, sorry, did not mean to go to Los Angeles. A bunch of different, oh no. Okay, well, I guess I'll do this one. A bunch of different areas, different points. Where is this? Oh, it's in Berkeley. I'm gonna go back to where I live because I'm kind of centered in this area. So say you have a bunch of points, and if you want to add stuff to them, if you add a new column, so I actually added a new column a few days ago for favorites. I don't know, just kind of an arbitrary name. And you can go in there and add things individually in the column. But when you do that, you might be sent to some random place. I don't know. I've never been to this place, so I'll give it a question mark. But let's say oh, come on, stop it. I don't want to go to Southern California right now. Stay in the Bay where it's good weather. Let's see, sorry. Okay. So you can also add it directly to the point. So I already added it for that. You can add it, so I guess there's a McDonald's in Napa. You can add something to the favorites value. So I'll just say, it's kind of and then you can go in, so I'm not wasting people's time here, but you can go in and change it by that column. So let's, sorry, go to uniform style. Instead of uniform style, I want to change it by the favorites column I just added. So it is going to give me that right now, right now, right now. Okay, so there's a few that I called yum. There's a few, I guess the question mark, it got this yellow. Gross, I must have made that earlier as a joke, so it's a trash can. It gets a purple, and then there's a bunch of other ones I didn't label. So this is very arbitrary. I'm just doing it for fast food restaurants, but imagine you have something, you have data that's more interesting. Imagine you're talking about different kind of schools, different kind of government organizations, anything you want to kind of categorize and show spatially. I did use something like this a long time ago when I was trying to show a bunch of different resources offered to various families in kind of the city area in Los Angeles. So you can definitely use this for very important works, not things that are trivial, like my fast food example. And lastly, oh, sorry, one more thing. Let me just show you real quick about visual properties. So I was talking about changing the color for points, but if you have polygons, all these properties are actually changeable. So you can go in there, change the color, change the border width, change transparency, which is, it makes the center, disappear. Oh, I don't want to be that transparent. Come on. Okay, so you can do things like that. Oh, great, I ruined part of the map. But there's a lot of different things you can change. And so you can really make your map stand out visually and look impressive or convey the message that you want based on different categories, based on different features. All right, so that's adding stuff. You can measure things. There's just a measuring tool right here between, let's zoom out, Sonoma State versus this road. Oh, it's 2 miles. And then you left click to get rid of it. Another super cool feature that one of the reasons why I'm so in love with this program is you can get it on your phone. So this has been actually pretty helpful for me when I'm at Osborne and I get slightly lost. You can go to your phone, go to Google Maps on your phone, and if you're signed in with your same email account, you can go, let's see, go to Places, and you scroll all the way over, and you go to your maps. So there is a way to get access to these maps. And so if you're kind of in a more remote area, this has some benefits. If you just kind of want to show it to people really quickly, you can do that on your phone. And you can also share these, and there's a way to embed this as well. Embed on my site. You can share it. You can play around with the privacy settings to really get that to work, but you can share these with people, and they get all that nice interactive zoom in and out properties. All right, so we're running slightly behind on time. Let me take like 1 minute break, and then we'll get to the next section. Now's a good time to, if you've had this stuff running in the background, if you had Google Maps running while I'm doing this, now's the time to play with it. I'm gonna just take a quick break, check the questions real quick, and then we'll move on to the next section. I also need to give my voice a chance to rest. Wait, chat. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna stop sharing screen real quick. Awkward. All right, so I'm just going to answer 2 questions real quick. Jack, you can't really add buffers in Google Maps. Now that'll actually be something I'll touch on with QGIS, which you can do. The only way you'd be able to do it is if you had a very exact drawing of it, but yeah, you can't do it automatically. You'd have to draw it yourself, and that is kind of one downside, because this is not really a GIS program by itself. It's more for making maps that are usable and kind of working with other GIS programs. But the buffer is something I'd consider in analysis. Oh yeah, sorry, one more question. Shoot. No, I'm sorry, Francis? You can't really turn off places that Google Maps provides. So if there's things that are already there, I think those are stuck there, at least to my knowledge. So it is kind of annoying. Maybe see with Sonoma State, like, oh, I don't really want to know about Domino's Pizza and Starbucks. So that could get slightly annoying. In some ways, that's actually one of the benefits of using Google My Maps, is you do get those places. But I can see that if you are in more of a suburban or urban, really anywhere besides the middle of the woods like I am, that could get kind of irritating. So that is one complication. That also reminds me that all the icons that you can add to your map are also icons that are already there. So that is, you do have to be careful what icons you add. You might visually it might look kind of confusing if you're using some of the really common ones. So I think I had like this fork symbol in mine as well. So that could get a little irritating. But yeah, let's see what else. Can you give examples of types of products you had for each GIS platform? Yes. So for, oh no. Okay, now there's too many. Okay, I'll answer these real quick. So Suji, so for this one, so the map that I'm making, Yellow Star Thistle, I've actually used in both QGIS and Google My Maps. It's very useful. Or I bounce things back and forth between them, and I'll touch on how to do that in a little while. Citizen science data, it depends. Oh, iNaturalist, I actually have this in the resource section. You can download data directly from iNaturalist. If it's a Gpx file, or I think iNaturalist is a table, so that makes it super easy to download. It should be something you can upload if everything has a GPS coordinate. GPS points are the simplest things to play with, to add, to do colors with. And you have to make sure it's either a GPX or a KML file if you want to bring it into Google My Maps. All right, I think I am done with Google My Maps, and I'm done answering questions for now. I kind of rushed through those a little bit. I hope everyone's doing well. It's a little eerie without feedback, but I also I can kind of run through things pretty quickly, so that's good too. Goodbye, Google My Maps. Hello, QGIS. Come on, yeah, QGIS. So QGIS, if any of you have used ArcGIS, QGIS is a little bit more, it's more analytical. If I were to make an analogy, I would say Google My Maps is kind of like a pocket knife. It's efficient, it can do a few things, it's shareable, you can just give it to somebody, it's super cool like that. But then you get QGIS. QGIS is more like a shed that you might have in your backyard, and you have some tools in it, and you can go to your neighbor's house, he'll give you some more tools, and you're like, oh great, thank you for all the tools. They're all free. ArcGIS is kind of like a really big house that was expensive to buy, and every room is full of toolboxes. There's no refrigerator, just a bunch of rooms full of tools, and you have to hire a butler to run and find the tools for you because everything's all over the place. So QGIS is a little more stripped down, it's a little more simple. It's something you can do analysis with that you can't really do with Google My Maps. So I'm gonna ask the question, oh gosh, to that later. I am not screen sharing right now. This makes this awkward. Screen share. There we go. Someone else asked the question. Oh, about buffers. And so you can add buffers to QGIS. And I'll just go through some of the basics right now. Running slightly short on time, but that's okay. I also want to note that this presentation or event is really meant to give you a taste, to get you to think about what kind of comparisons you can make. And there are a lot of online tutorials that I've put a link to in the document that you can visit for more thorough tutorials made by very, very good experts. I just have some years of experience. So importing files, the way you import files, you go to add layer, and you can add a vector, raster layer, you can add CSV files, they call it something else here. Vector. So you do that, go to your data set, and one thing that I want to show you, whoa, what is this guy doing here? Come on, computer. Oh no, don't crash on me. QGIS also won't crash as much as ArcGIS would because it's a simpler program. Okay. Why did I go here? Oh, so yeah, here's the folder. I just want to show you all the different files that you can actually access that are, these are vector, so vector meaning point, line, polygon. So quite a bit of different files you can access. One thing I want to note, if you are importing a shape file in QGIS, it has it as separate files. There's 5 or 6 files that are associated with the shape file. you have to select on the one that says shapefile. I know for those of you who have done ArcGIS, you actually it would give you just like one icon for all 6 files. Here it has it separate, and you have to select that shapefile. The same for importing rasters. You have to select the file that ends with .tiff, not one of the other like 5 or 6 files associated with it. So here's a map. Oh no. Come on. My mouse is a little touchy. Here's a map that I made with QGIS, and all these polygons I added by using the tracks. Let me just show you tracks. So I imported the same GPS track that I was talking about earlier, and I outlined these individually to make these polygons. So the map that you're actually seeing in Google My Maps is one that I've done a lot of preparation with in QGIS, and I threw it back to Google My Maps. Importing. I'm going to skip over the changing projections right now because that's actually annoying and complicated. And I'm going to show you selecting by features. So if you want to select by features, let me open my yellow star thistle patch map or data table. And I have these broken down by different densities. 4 is the most dense. So I can select by different densities by just dragging. And you can see, you should be able to see that appear on the map. It's bright yellow. You can also select by name, or not name, select by expression. So I'm going to say density. I want density to be equal to 4. Nope, 4. There we go. Density equals 4. If you're using a number, you just put the number. If you're using a label, a name, you have to put like single quote marks, and then say select features. Now it's selected all of those. And why would you want to do this? Well, maybe you only want a subsection of your data. And if you're preparing something for Google My Maps and it has to be a KML that's under 5 megabytes, this is actually very useful. You would right click on this. Oh, come on. Export, save feature as, and you would save only selected features. So that would actually give you just all the yellow ones here. Let me deselect and selecting by features. You can convert between file types. So if you go to vector, you can go to, where is it? Oh no. Sorry, raster. If you had a raster, you could convert between raster and vector. You can also convert between different file types. So when I said save as, you can save it as one of the many different file types. So if you want to save it as a data table, if you want to save it as a KML, you can do that. It depends on what it is you're actually saving. So GPX points, for example, has to be an actual point. You can't convert a polygon to a GPX coordinate. It doesn't work that way unless you're doing one of the other types of analysis. So I'm going to now touch on really the main analysis part of QGIS. So let me figure out where that is. Oh yeah, Geoprocessing Tools. So one of the main things that people do in GIS classes at the very beginning is you learn how to do buffers. So let's say, for demonstration purposes, I want to be 100 meters away at all times from yellow star thistle because it's an invasive plant and it grosses me out. It grosses me out. It makes me nauseous or something. I would set that to 100 meters and I would run it. And look at that. Oh, made a bunch of buffers around all those yellow star thistle patches. This is kind of not the best thing to use, but if you want to dissolve it to make it a little more visually appealing and actually more useful, you can also do dissolve. So dissolve is a very common tool that you would see right off the bat, and run that. And look at that. Okay, this is dissolved. This is now within 100 meters from all of my yellow star thistle patches. So that's the invasive plant that I've been talking about. And if I bring my yellow star thistle layer above it, you can really see, actually I'm going to bring the trails above that as well. All right, this is the buffered area. That's kind of an interesting question, but now maybe I want to see which parts of the trails I should actually avoid. So I would go to clip. I'm going to input, let's see, input the trails. Where are my trails? Osborne trails, and I will import select by dissolved, run that, And I'm going to actually change the visual properties of this real quick so you can actually see what I'm talking about. Let's make it, oh no, purple. Make it bright purple. And let's make the width really big. All right, and if I were to get rid of this other dissolve thing, you kind of see this highlighted area. Oh, those are maybe parts of the trail where I might see yellow star thistle. It's not really possible to do a tour here without seeing just a little bit of yellow star thistle, but you know, there's yeah, some places where there's a lot more. All right, let me go back to that. So those are some of the main operations that you can do. You can also play around with the visuals. So this is very important. If you have a lot of different layers, maybe you want something that's transparent. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say how I got there. Let me do that again. You go to Properties, and then it opens up a huge menu. And when I go to Properties, it automatically defaults to Symbology. And if I want to make this transparent layer rendering and you bring this down, I'm going to bring it to like 50 or 60. That's actually a good place to bring it. And you can kind of see that there. So it's a little less intrusive. You can have multiple things. If you have some of them that are slightly transparent versus some that are not. You can play around with the visuals as well. So let me go back to the yellow star thistle. So you can play with the categories. I'm going to make a copy of this real quick. You can duplicate layer. There's a lot of menus I'm just kind of glossing over here. So sorry about that because there's a lot to cover. But if you go to Properties again, you can change this by, you can do it by a number category. Categories, these are already categories. Even though they're numbered, they're actually a category. You can change it by graduated, so a whole series of numbers, and you can allow it to find the, you can allow it to mathematically select different categories based on different principles. So I'll just say equal interval, classify, oh, I need to give it a number, area, meters squared, classify that. So now it's broken down to different categories. So that's kind of useful. I would change this to something that's more visible, and you can also flip the color ramp. And let me apply this. So I did that. This is kind of redundant because you can already see the meters squared. But in this example, at least you can see the different categories that I made based off meters squared instead of the severity of each patch. So let's remove this strange layer and go back to this. You can play with the labels. So if you go to Properties, Labels, and you could set it based on whatever column you want. So if you have a name, now is a good time to use that. I have ID numbers for each yellow star thistle patch. So I can say, oh, we're going to go treat patch number 1, which is a huge patch. Oh, we're going to go to patch number 30. That's why I have that here. You can also play with different, labels, color, visibility. You can change the borders. You can change pretty much any visual property. You can change the symbols, the icons, or different points. Oh no, I'm missing something. Oh, I should note that with QGIS, you do have to build kind of the background yourself a bit more. I think there are base map layers you can use, but it is recommended to build it yourself so you kind of know what you're doing, what's going into it. I had this hill shade layer in the background, and then I added this other vegetation layer to get this kind of look. You can also add your own points. So kind of like with QGIS, kind of like with Google My Maps, you can add your own points. So if I wanted to add my own points, I would go to Layer, Create Layer, New Shapefile. So this is going to be a bunch of points. I would call it, I want to make it Polygon for now. I would call it Fake 1. Yeah, I don't get it mixed up with all the other fake layers that I've made. So it just made my fake layer. I think it's making it kind of a dark green. You can see it pop up here. There's no layer right now because I don't have any polygons with it. But if you go to Toggle Editing, and then now a polygon appears, you can add stuff. So I just made kind of making a random polygon in the middle of space. Call it number 1. And So you make more polygons kind of in the space, call this number 2, and I'll make another polygon in the middle space, call that number 3. So in the off chance that I have a few, I don't know, forest patches that look like a smiley face, this is what I can do. So don't make smiley faces on your maps, but for demonstration purposes, the add polygons is kind of nice if you want to trace some kind of outline. Again, that's actually how I got these polygons in here. I traced each outline individually. But you can also add points this way. It's a little more difficult in QGIS because you might not exactly know what you're adding to it. You don't have Google Maps as the background map to say, oh, this is a real thing. But that's how you would do that. So let's remove this abomination. Yes. And what else? Really quickly, some of the other features. So for those of you who are familiar with GIS, some of these things might sound familiar. You can do differences between things. You can combine 2 layers together in a union. Convex hull is actually if you have a bunch of points and you want to make a polygon out of it, I believe. You can do center points, so centroids. If you have all these yellow star thistle patches or any patch you want, you can create a centroid from it. Something else. Oh, lines to polygons, polygons to lines. There's a lot of different tools, and these are still kind of some of the basic ones. You can do some general statistics, like statistics for different fields. So calculate the average area of all my yellow star thistle patches. There's a lot of distance stuff. I think there's more distance stuff. I think there's more distance in the analysis. Yeah, distance matrix between all your points. You can reproject. So if you want to change projections, that's how you would do that. And make grids, a few things like that. So I think that's most of it. I didn't really get to change projections, but really quickly, a projection is almost like the language of your map. Since the world is round and the maps are flat, if you can imagine this is your Earth and you guys, not even sure if you guys can see me actually, but imagine you have a flat, round world and you have to make it flat. So the points get kind of warped a bit when you do that. And you have to make sure everything's in the same language. So in the back of the handout, I did include some common projections. Google My Maps uses something called the Web Mercator. WGS 84 is kind of the standard that your points might be in. And UTM, North American Dataset UTM Zone 10N, which is a mouthful to say, that's one that I use to make this map. And so if you are converting between the files, you will want to be cognizant of that. Make sure the projection's the same. Shoot, I feel like I'm forgetting something. I hope I'm not. Let me just look over this list real quick. I think that's mostly what I wanted to say. Oh, something happened. Okay. And let me just real quick touch on moving between the 2 files, moving between the 2 programs. So in your handout, there is this diagram that I made. So both can take in a variety of different programs. QGIS can take in like 50 different types of files. Google My Maps can take in really about 3 or 4, but you can use Google My Maps. Oh, someone wants to jump in? Okay, admit. You can use, oh, come on. I added these, okay, sorry. So Google My Maps only has a few different types of files that it can use, but it does have that Google Maps background, does have that reference point. So maybe you just want to create a map, maybe you just want some icons. But if you want to do analysis, you can take that layer. If it's saved as a KML, you can export it to QGIS, import that KML in QGIS, and do more analysis with it. Maybe you want to clip it. Maybe you want to select certain things. You can select a few things in Google My Maps, but maybe you want to do even more with it. So that's kind of how I see them interacting. You have your kind of Google Maps general reference. Sometimes I even use Google My Maps to check where my GPS points are. If I think, oh, I'm not quite sure, I'm in the middle of the woods, let me just check. I just want kind of a nice reference. That's why you might use that. QGIS, you have all your buffers, your analysis, your joining tables, which I definitely did not talk about today because that's a long thing. Pretty much anything you can do in QGIS, you can do anything you can do in ArcGIS, you can do in QGIS. I also just remembered what I wanted to talk about. I talked about the basics, the basic tools here. There's more raster tools. There's also a bunch of other tools over here. This is the more in-depth toolbox. If you download, what was that noise? Oh, whatever. If you download QGIS, also select Graph and Saga. Those are actually separate programs you can download with it. QGIS allows you to use them. There's a bunch of other plugins and stuff. The reason why I compared QGIS to having a shed that you can fill with tools and talk to your neighbors and give you free tools is because QGIS is a simpler program and you can get a bunch of extra toolboxes that you can download as plugins from the main program itself, but also from there. Sorry, that was a slight tangent. Let's see, that's mostly it, I think, for this. Yeah. You want to adhere to the 5 megabyte limit. You want to be careful with projections. And I definitely would love to answer any questions you all might have about these two programs. Before we kind of open it up to questions, because I imagine the question section could last a while if there's a lot of questions. I just want to thank you all for attending. And more quick notes from our sponsors. Let's see. Thank you all for attending. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you check out our website, Sonoma State University Center for Environmental Inquiry. We will be having many events over the next few months. This is only the second online event. I myself will be doing 2 different camera trap events, one for more like the researchy side of things with camera traps, and one on kind of citizen science, set up a camera trap in your backyard. So those are the 2 events that I'm leading, April 26th and I think May 16th, respectively. But there are also a few other events as well. There's some on dragonflies. We have events on many different other citizen science applications. We have quite a few other people presenting, and I'm very excited. I will be attending probably about 5 of them myself, just because it's just wonderful. So please look into those and look at our website and stay for the next whatever amount of time you need to answer questions. I will actually go first through those who listed them in the chat. Wow, my throat hurts. Okay, I'm gonna stop share so I can see the chat a little better. Whoa, and move this over. Let's see. So Julie, I answered other questions. Julie Whitman. Oops. Still people here? Had everyone left? Okay, there's still people here. Julie Whitman said, which program? Okay, there were 3 QGIS options when installing: Express Desktop, Express, WebGIS Advanced. Oh, huh. I didn't know you could install 3 different ones. That's good to know. I must have downloaded before that. I did not know they had those. I just go with Advanced. You get more tools. Why not? I'm actually very curious now about Express WebGIS. I did not know they did that, but that would be interesting. It is possible. So these GIS applications continue to update. It is possible that the WebGIS application is something new that they've added. I know ArcGIS, for example, has a ton of web stuff that they have that's part of their program. So my guess is QGIS might be trying to break into that field as well. So I can check that out today and maybe get back to you, but Advanced sounds appealing because it's not as Express. You get everything with it, I'm guessing. So does anyone else have questions? Please, you can type them in the chat, or you can type them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. Probably raise your hand and unmute yourself might be the best. Or we can have a few people talk at once, and that's kind of amusing sometimes. So yeah, anyone that ask questions, I'm here. Is anyone there? Thanks. Thank you, Zoe. Oh shoot. Oh no. Oh no. There's a few. Okay. What is your favorite map you've created with QGIS? I mean, the map, yellow star thistle one's halfway decent. I would say some maps that I've created for Sonoma State have been really fun. Let me think. There's some with animal populations, so this one's really fun. So if you can somehow find GPS coordinates for wildlife populations, sometimes they're based on the animal collar, you can use the convex hull to make a polygon that is kind of like their home range. Actually, it is their home range. And as someone who I have some math background, but there's no way I'd know how to do that like separately in a different program. You can actually get the home range by it just collects all the points. You can definitely hand trace that yourself, but it's nicer when there's a more mathematical way to do that. So that's kind of a fun map that I've created. I believe I've also used, I forget if it's QGIS or ArcGIS. I've done some other stuff with wildlife populations. So you can export, I think I had some stuff with camera traps and I tried to predict the presence of wildlife using camera trap data. And that was more in the raster field, but you can take in a lot of information, do a little bit of stats on it on the side, and bring it back into QGIS and make a map that kind of has predicted places where these things are most likely to be. In other classes, they call this like a habitat index or something. So it's kind of like that. So sorry, that was a long answer to Zoe's question. Thank you, Catherine. Favorite applications used and which one have you found is most commonly used in the field? QGIS is very common for a GIS application. As I may have mentioned before, I actually jump back and forth between the two. Google My Maps itself is not a full GIS application. It's really more of a way to display data. It's really shareable. It's amazingly shareable. And I jump back and forth between the two quite a bit. If any of you do have ArcGIS, there are some ways to make online maps that are kind of similar to Google My Maps. They're actually probably slightly better, but they don't have that shareability. You can't, as far as I know, you can't get QGIS, sorry, I'm sorry, too many names. An ArcGIS map on your phone unless you have something called ArcGIS Collector and you do some other work. So it is a little limiting. It's not quite as fun for the general public or for people who don't want to dive into those intense programs. If you mean by in the field, like in the actual outdoors, I use a GPS unit like this one. Oh, colors making this really hard to see. Put it in front of my face. Okay, GPS unit like this one, as well as I have used Google My Maps to kind of navigate a little bit. It's helpful. Okay, reshare the document. Yes, I will reshare the document, I think after this. I want to stay for if anyone else has questions. If anyone else wants to talk, that would be cool too. Oh, good, high school students. Yeah, Google My Maps is definitely easy. I think it's super easy for people to use. There's there's tutorials as well, which I have in the link. So make sure you check some of those out. I did kind of do a crash course through most of what Google My Maps can do, but I definitely think it's a good start to making maps is Google My Maps. And then if you want to do more analysis, starting to think about, oh, okay, I can now use QGIS to do analysis, but Google My Maps is pretty good. Anyone else have questions? This is actually the least, oh, okay. Yes, so I use a GPS unit. I don't think I demonstrated it that well to build so with the GPS unit, let me jump over to this. Let me share my screen, sorry. Hey there, where's the, come on, share screen. All right, so hopefully, Jack, you can see this. I use the track, so oh, come on, QGIS, don't die on me. I use the tracks. This is not the best track to use. I used a combination of tracks and points. So in the field, I had a data sheet. I wrote everything down. I was writing down the densities and stuff. But what I did was I took a bunch of points for every, where's the best one? For every GPS, I took a bunch of points for every yellow star thistle patch, so I knew which one was which. So there was actually a bunch of yellow star thistle, a bunch of points there. And then I traced each individual track. Which I didn't show you here is I actually had, for each day that I went out, I actually had a bunch of different tracks. Oh wait, sorry, let me make sure the message isn't that I'm messing up. Who's the chat? Chat. Okay, I'll just keep going. A bunch of different tracks. And then I did that draw feature that I was showing you, and I traced around each of these tracks. They were not all one track, they were individual tracks, so I could tell which one coordinated to which point in my data sheet. But yeah, you should, in at least more of the recent GPS units, be able to use the track to walk around different features. There are some smartphone apps that I've seen that are trying to do this, but it's a little annoying. There's only a few, like, what's the name? There's a plant one, I wrote it down. But there's a few apps that try to do this, but if you want to do polygons, GPS units are a good way to do it. You can't quite do it like in Google Maps when you're out in the field, but CalFlora, I believe, yes, CalFlora does allow you to trace polygons, and there might be a few others. Over the past few months, I've been playing with them and getting a little frustrated because the GPS unit is the most simple thing for me, at least.